I have no doubt in my mind that everyone in this room has something that really gets their blood flowing, something that gives them a euphoric feeling of accomplishment. For me, it's the feeling I get when I build and create something from nothing. For as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with movie magic. When I saw movies like The Terminator, E.T., and Star Wars, I couldn't stop wondering, how'd they do that? It was a time before CGI, and it was all done with robotics, puppetry, and magic tricks, and I was hooked. I devoted much of my life to learning and discovering how to recreate what struck me so deeply as a child, and I'd like to share some of my creations with you today. The first is my rendition of the Piranha plant from Super Mario Bros. I had recently watched a behind the scenes from the movie Alien, and the creators were discussing how they pulled off the iconic scene when the alien burst out of the guy's chest. The way they made the little creature move was by using bicycle cables and levers. I really wanted to try to build that mechanism, and the perfect excuse arose: a video game-based art show called Artcade. The Piranha plant from Super Mario immediately came to mind because of its long plant stem, which I imagined flailing around like a tentacle. As you can see, I've arranged a series of discs, like a spine, and through the disc I have bicycle cables running all the way from the top out to these joysticks. Much like how our fingers work with tendons pulling them down, as I push and pull the cables, the plant moves in all different directions. When I push this button, his mouth opens. I like to take on projects that I feel I can learn a new skill from. In this case, I used an everyday item like a bicycle cable to transfer motion to a character to bring it to life. It's a classic movie magic trick, and now I can use it over and over again. This next piece I call the Tip Goblin. I had an art show coming up in 2 days that I wasn't being paid for. So I wanted to come up with a cute, non-threatening, yet dignified way to beg for change. My solution: build a creature to do it for me. I knew I wanted the creature to look like it stepped out of one of Jim Henson's fantasy worlds. So I walked into my shop, and I was immediately inspired when I spotted an old college project sitting on a shelf. It was a small wireframe head that originally had a body, but like the fate of many college art projects, someone sat on it. The head was all I could salvage, so I grabbed it and started brushing layer after layer of liquid latex over it to build up a skin. For the next 2 days, I was on autopilot, grabbing whatever I could find around me to make each little body part. I found the perfect pieces for the eyes, used masking tape wrapped around wire for the hands, and topped it all off with an old leather jacket that I cut up to make the body. As you can see, he operates just like the Piranha plant. As I move the joystick around, his head moves. When I twist the knob, his mouth opens. And when I push this button here, he extends his arm to beg for tips. This project was an exercise in resourcefulness. It demonstrates what can be done when time and materials are limited. And I think limits are good. Limits can force you to come up with new and interesting ways to solve problems. There's a quote from the creator of the Arduino that I think just explains this nicely. During the punk era, knowing 3 chords on a guitar was enough to start a band. Don't let the experts in one field tell you that you'll never be one of them. Ignore them and surprise them. This next project is something I've been steadily working on since 2010. A beer dispensing replica of R2-D2. Specifically designed for tailgating. When I first started that project, I was just going to make the head out of paper mache and leave it at that. But then I spotted an old Weber barbecue pit that was the perfect shape, so I decided to use that instead. I grabbed it and painted it purple and gold, added various handmade and found objects to make all the little detail parts. I used an old car window motor to make it spin and an iPod for sound. And it looked like this. Not bad, but the next year I decided it needed a body. R2's already keg-shaped, so it just made sense. The body was completely fabricated out of sheet plastic, wood, metal, chewing gum, duct tape, hot glue, pretty much whatever I could find to make it look decent. It was basically made of junk. It looked good, but it was always breaking down, and I was always having to fix things on it, so I ultimately decided it was time to scrap it, start all over, and build a whole new one. I used every bit of my mold making and casting knowledge to hand make every single part on this new R2. After a while, I had the form and aesthetics down. But remember those limits I mentioned earlier? I don't know how to program. So I had two of my more tech-savvy friends offer to do all the coding that brought R2 to life. I found over the years that if you're working on something cool enough, people actually really want to help. The first R2 took me 3 months. This one has taken me about 3 years. And here he is today. Whoa! I gotta show you all this. It's water, it's not beer. Almost every time people see R2, they ask me if I'm an engineer. And I always laugh and say, no, I was a sculpture major. An engineer couldn't do this. I have nothing against engineers. I just feel like they have a tendency to be a little too by the book sometimes, and there's got to be some mischief when building something like this, or any of these things, because in a lot of cases, it's never been done before. And there is no book. The people that made a lot of the animatronics for many iconic films were not engineers. They were mechanically inclined artists. What's that, R2? Oh yeah, I almost forgot. This last piece is a culmination of everything I've learned over the years, from sculpting to mold making to animatronics. He's a character for a short film contest that I've been working on with my friend Clay Ashe to submit to the Jim Henson Company.
Hello, all. My name's Twiggly. It was dark in that box. I thought you'd never stop going on and on about yourself.
Twiggly is brought to life through a combination of rods, robotics, and good old-fashioned hand puppetry. I hand sculpted his face and hands and cast them in silicone. The facial features are all radio controlled by Keith Craig somewhere backstage. And his teeth are actually a copy of my own teeth that I made from a copy that my dentist actually gave me, and I made a mold, and figured why not. So, and clay Ashe is actually under here, puppeteering.
It's horrifying, isn't it? I feel so naked.
My passion has led me on a path from using guesswork and garbage to the sophisticated tools that made something like Twiggly possible.
Yes, I'm very impressive. Are you ready to wrap this up? Give them the old follow your dream speech. They'll eat that up.
I'd like to leave y'all with this. I have a day job, but it hasn't stopped me from doing what I love to do. Building and creating things from nothing and bringing them to life. Jim Henson's Kermit prototype was made from his mother's old house coat and a ping pong ball. He was resourceful, and he used his passion to take nothing and make something that people love, something that changed the world. So what if you don't know programming, or don't have access to a 3D printer, or have no idea how to even begin building something? If you have the drive to do it, you'll find a way. And this applies to all forms of creativity. Start from nothing. Work small at first. Build up your knowledge by practicing more and more, and eventually you'll get there. And just remember, everything starts with nothing. Thank you.